Ethan Cole crouched behind the rusted remains of a collapsed beacon tower, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the small welding torch strapped across his chest. Virella 9 was not a kind planet for humans. Its surface was scarred from decades of war, and the horizon was constantly painted in shades of ash and smoke. Cities that once thrived now lay in ruins, their metallic skeletons jutting into the sky like the bones of giants. Ethan had seen worse, but nothing prepared him for what was about to happen. He was scavenging parts for the Terran Alliance, trying to fix a broken communication array that could connect the scattered human outposts on the planet. Humans were tolerated here, but they were not respected. They were considered clever but fragile, creatures not made for war who survived through caution and intellect rather than raw strength. Ethan had always agreed. His survival depended on thinking fast, keeping a low profile, and never underestimating the dangers around him. That night, the wind carried a faint sound, a cry, high-pitched and trembling. Ethan froze. It was unlike anything he had heard before, more desperate than a creature trapped in a hunting trap. He moved cautiously, following the sound through the skeletal remains of a once bustling industrial district. Broken machinery rattled under his boots, and the faint hum of distant energy fields vibrated through the ground. Around a collapsed steel beam, Ethan found her. She was a Velari, a species renowned for their silver skin that shimmered under starlight, and eyes that glowed softly like liquid crystal. She was injured, clutching her shoulder where a glowing plasma burn seared through her armor. Her luminous eyes were filled with fear, and something more, a pleading that pierced through Ethan's usual caution. "Please," her voice cracked. "Help me." Ethan hesitated for a moment, assessing the situation. Catharn scouts, their enemies, patrolled nearby. Any sound could give them away, and these soldiers were known for their ruthlessness. Yet, as he looked into her glowing eyes, he felt something stir in him that no calculation or survival instinct could ignore. He dropped to one knee. "You're going to be okay, but you need to hide. Can you move?" The Velari's breath hitched. I can try." Ethan grabbed a length of steel debris and dragged it across the broken floor, creating a makeshift barrier. He helped her underneath, using careful but firm hands. The wound on her shoulder was bad. Plasma burns weren't just superficial. They could be lethal if untreated. Ethan quickly assessed the damage. "I can stabilize it, but you have to stay still." Her head nodded faintly. "I don't have much time, my sister. She's trapped." Ethan frowned. "Trapped where?" "In the Catharn Citadel," she whispered. They are using her to power their war machines. If we don't act, she won't survive the night." Ethan's mind raced. Infiltrating a Catharn fortress was suicide. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were genetically enhanced, ruthless, and far stronger than humans. Yet when he saw her expression, the desperation and hope mixed together, he knew he couldn't turn away. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "I'll help. But you need to tell me everything I need to know to keep both of you alive." The Velari nodded, tears forming at the corners of her glowing eyes. "I am Lyra, and if you save her, I will belong to you forever." Ethan froze. He had no idea what she meant, but her words were filled with sincerity. Not desperation for power or submission. She believed in her way that life debts bound souls together. He simply nodded. "Then we save your sister." Night had deepened over Virella 9, and the forested outskirts of the industrial ruins were alive with unseen creatures. Strange, bioluminescent insects flitted between the charred trees, and shadows danced in the moonlight. Ethan and Lyra moved cautiously, sticking to the cover of ruins and low-hanging steel beams. Each step was measured. Every sound was analyzed. Lyra explained the Velari bond system as they walked. In her culture, life debts weren't just symbolic. They were sacred promises. A person who risked their life for another could claim their devotion, not as a slave but as someone bound by honor and trust. Ethan listened, intrigued. He was learning more than he expected about a species that humans rarely understood. They shared moments of cautious levity amidst the danger. Lyra laughed softly when Ethan tried to navigate the glowing mushrooms scattered across the forest floor, nearly tripping over them. Ethan teased her about her glowing eyes, claiming they made her look like some alien cat ready to pounce. She shot him a glare, then smiled, a rare, genuine smile. These brief moments reminded Ethan that courage wasn't just about brute force. It was about hope, connection, and trust. After hours of navigating the ruins, they reached the edge of a plateau overlooking the Catharn citadel. Massive walls of black metal jutted into the sky, crackling with energy fields and patrolled by drones. The sound of machinery and low-humming engines vibrated through the ground. Ethan's mind began calculating every variable: entry points, patrol timing, energy field patterns. Lyra provided insight into the citadel's interior layout, something no human map could reveal. "This is it," she whispered. "My sister's inside, but the power grid is tied to her life force. If they detect any tampering, they could kill her instantly." Ethan nodded, eyes scanning the citadel. "Then we need a distraction and a plan. Something clever, something fast. Do you trust me?" Lyra's eyes softened. "I do, more than anyone else ever could." Together, they set their plan into motion. Ethan scavenged old human tech from nearby ruins, small EMP devices, power converters, and a hacking tablet. Lyra guided him, using her knowledge of Valari energy conduits to reroute patrols and avoid drones. Every step was tense, every shadow a potential death trap. Yet Ethan's confidence grew with each obstacle he overcame. When they reached the citadel's outer walls, they faced a final obstacle: a grid of laser fields designed to incinerate anyone who attempted to pass. Ethan's mind worked quickly. He calculated trajectories, timing, and angles. With careful precision, he activated a small EMP, temporarily disabling the grid. Lyra darted through first, her glowing eyes lighting the path, followed by Ethan holding his breath. Inside, the corridors were dark, humming with the energy of the captives and machinery. They could hear faint, distant cries, other species trapped and being drained for energy. The air was thick with heat and a metallic scent. Lyra's hand brushed against Ethan's. "This way," she whispered. They moved cautiously through the maze of hallways. Catharn drones patrolled every corridor, their mechanical eyes scanning for movement. Ethan used his hacked console to open doors and reroute energy fields. Lyra used her plasma blade to quietly disable guards, striking with precise efficiency. Every small victory strengthened their bond. At last, they reached the containment chamber. Inside, Ethan saw Saris, Lyra's sister, suspended in a transparent energy pod, her life force visibly siphoned into the citadel's power grid. Ethan's chest tightened. Time was running out. Lyra's voice trembled. "If we don't act now," Ethan assessed the systems. Disconnecting Saris recklessly could end her life instantly. He needed a calculated approach, one that only his human ingenuity could accomplish. He traced circuits, rerouted energy, and calculated risk down to the millisecond. Lyra watched in awe as this human, small, seemingly fragile, handled technology that Valari engineers would have struggled with. "I think I can do this," Ethan said, determination steady in his voice. "But I need to link into the system myself." Lyra's eyes widened. "No, human bodies cannot handle that kind of energy." "You could die." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I guess I have to be careful." They exchanged a brief nod. No words were needed. Trust was implicit. Together they prepared the connection, each movement precise and deliberate. The hum of the citadel's machinery grew louder, almost like a heartbeat counting down the seconds before their plan had to succeed. As Ethan linked the circuits, the air shimmered with energy. Lyra steadied him, using her own energy field to shield him from the first surge. Sparks flew, machines whined, and for a moment, the entire chamber seemed alive, reacting to the human and Valari working as one. Ethan gritted his teeth, focusing entirely on his calculations, his hands moving with a surgeon's precision. Lyra's soft voice reminded him to breathe, to trust his instincts. Each second felt like an eternity. Finally, the energy flow stabilized. Sirris's pod unlocked, her body slumping forward into Ethan's arms. She gasped alive, blinking at the bright light as Lyra caught her. Ethan collapsed onto one knee, exhaustion threatening to pull him into darkness, but relief flooded through him. They had succeeded for now. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands on his shoulders, her eyes shining with tears and gratitude. You saved her. I belong to you, human. Not as a servant, but as one who owes her life to you." Ethan laughed softly, despite the heat and chaos around them. "I think being friends works for me." The three of them moved carefully through the citadel's shadows, avoiding returning patrols. Dawn approached, painting the sky in muted shades of red and gold. For the first time in his life on Varela 9, Ethan felt hope, not just for survival, but for something greater. As they reached the outer plateau, overlooking the ruins below, Lyra's voice was quiet but resolute. Our worlds, they will never be the same after tonight. Ethan looked at the horizon, the sun rising over a scarred but beautiful planet. Good, maybe it's time they changed. The night had barely faded when Ethan, Lyra, and Ceres crouched behind the jagged edges of the citadel's outer wall. Smoke and debris from their previous infiltration still lingered in the air, glowing faintly under the rising sun. The Catharn were already regrouping. Ethan could feel the hum of the city's energy fields, each pulse a warning of approaching danger. He didn't flinch. Humans were not naturally strong, but they were clever, and his mind was already turning every possibility over in seconds. Lyra's silver skin glimmered under the pale light, her glowing eyes scanning for threats. Ceres was weak but alive, her breathing shallow as she leaned against her sister. "We need to move," Lyra whispered, urgency in her voice. "They'll send reinforcements soon." "The Citadel will not forgive this intrusion," Ethan nodded. "Then we make our exit smarter than they expect." He had already memorized the patrol patterns, the energy surges, and the paths through the shadowed corridors. His human logic worked differently from the Valari's instinct-based strategy, but it was effective. They slipped through the ruined streets of the industrial zone, moving carefully to avoid detection. Occasionally, a Catharn drone would hover past, scanning the air for disturbances, but Ethan's quick improvisation with hacked EMP pulses kept them hidden. Ceres stumbled once, and Ethan caught her before she fell. The effort made him realize the gravity of what they had accomplished. Rescuing her had been one thing. Escaping alive was another. Hours passed as they navigated the ruins. Each turn, each shadow, each rusted fragment of building became both cover and trap. Lyra shared stories of her childhood with Ceres, how they had trained together, how they had survived raids, and how the Valari believed in the strength of bonds, not weapons alone. Ethan listened, fascinated by her calm in the face of danger. She had been terrified just moments ago, yet now she moved with purpose, her trust in him complete. They reached a narrow gorge leading to a hidden transport tunnel. Ethan's mind raced, calculating the risks. The Catharn had likely deployed tracking sensors in this region, but there were also remnants of old human transport systems, unused, forgotten, and perfect for their escape. He worked quickly, rerouting power from a nearby derelict generator to disable a security gate. Sparks flew as metal groaned under the sudden surge. Lyra stepped aside, allowing him room to work, while Ceres watched silently. Once the gate clanged open, they entered the tunnel. The air was thick and smelled of rust, oil, and something else Ethan couldn't identify. He stayed close to Ceres, ensuring her safety, while Lyra led the way, her energy blade glowing faintly to illuminate the path. Their shadows danced along the walls, stretching and shrinking as they moved. "Do you know why humans can survive like this?" Lyra asked softly, her voice echoing in the tunnel. Ethan shrugged, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Because we have to. We can't rely on strength alone. We survive with our heads and our hearts." Lyra nodded slowly. "I've underestimated humans. I thought your kind weak, fragile, easy to break. I see now that you are more." Ethan smiled faintly, appreciating her words. "We just know how to keep going when everything else fails." The tunnel opened into a small cavern, the walls glistening with moisture and mineral deposits. Here Ethan's technical skills became crucial. He quickly assembled a small device from spare parts, a makeshift EMP pulse generator capable of disabling Catharn tracking nodes in their immediate area. Lyra watched him with a mixture of awe and admiration. Humans did not possess the natural energy fields of Valari, yet their ingenuity often surpassed anything she had seen. With the nodes disabled, they continued through the cavern, the sound of distant Catharn patrols echoing faintly behind them. Each step was a calculated risk. Ethan knew the odds. They were small, the enemy was strong, and the terrain was unfamiliar. But he also knew something Valari often overlooked. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability, when paired with courage, could change the outcome of any battle. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of a cliff overlooking the valley that led to the human safe zone. The sun had fully risen, bathing the landscape in pale gold light. Ethan took a moment to catch his breath and assess the terrain. They could descend carefully, but Catharn scouts might spot them. He needed another plan. He turned to Lyra. We're not just escaping. We're creating a path they won't expect. Lyra's glowing eyes narrowed. Explain. Ethan pointed to a narrow ledge running along the cliffside, partially covered by hanging vines and rock outcroppings. We go there. It's risky, but they won't see us. Then we cross the valley using the old transport carts hidden in the forest. We'll make it before they can react. Lyra nodded, her trust in him absolute. Then we do it. They moved carefully along the cliffside, Ethan leading Saris while Lyra covered their rear. The rocks were unstable, the wind sharp, but every step was deliberate. When Saris faltered, Ethan steadied her, his hands firm and sure. Lyra occasionally scanned for drones, her blade ready to strike if needed. By the time they reached the bottom of the cliff, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them. But Ethan's determination never wavered. He could feel the weight of responsibility, not just for the sisters, but for the broader human and Valari struggle. Every small act of courage mattered, and this was his moment to prove that even a single human could change the course of events. The forest ahead was dense, shadows shifting with the morning light. Ethan guided them silently, using his knowledge of terrain and stealth to avoid detection. Lyra marveled at his calm in the face of danger. She had grown up fighting with warriors far stronger than humans. Yet here this fragile-looking creature moved with the precision of a seasoned soldier. Eventually, they reached the hidden transport system. Ethan's technical expertise allowed him to power up the long-abandoned carts, bypassing the safety protocols that had kept them inactive. The carts whirred to life, their wheels clattering along the rusted tracks. Saris climbed in first, Lyra following, and Ethan stayed behind momentarily to ensure the area was clear. As he leapt into the last cart, a Catharn patrol suddenly appeared, alerted by a delayed sensor. Ethan acted without hesitation, pulling a makeshift pulse device from his pack and activating it. The patrol drones convulsed and fell silent, their systems fried by the electromagnetic pulse. Lyra glanced at him, eyes wide. You saved us again. Ethan simply nodded, focusing on moving the cart. They glided through the forest, weaving between trees, rocks, and remnants of past battles. The valley below opened up to reveal the human safe zone, a fortified settlement of domed habitats and communication arrays. Relief washed over him, but he remained alert. Catharn reinforcements could arrive at any moment. When they finally reached the safe zone, human engineers rushed forward, astonished to see Valari alive. And more astonishingly, a human had brought them here safely. Ethan helped Saris down, her legs trembling, and Lyra fell to her knees beside him, placing her hands on his shoulders. "You've saved my sister," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You've risked everything for us. I belong to you, human. Not as a servant, but as one whose life is tied to yours forever." Ethan shook his head, exhausted but smiling. "I think being friends works just fine." Saris, now steadying herself, looked at Ethan with curiosity and gratitude. "Who are you? How did a human accomplish what even Valari warriors could not?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Just someone who believes that courage isn't about strength or size. It's about heart." The safe zone celebrated the sisters' return, and whispers about the human who dared to challenge the Catharn spread quickly. For the first time, humans were not just observers or weaklings, they were heroes. Ethan's actions proved that intelligence, courage, and compassion could rival even the most powerful species in the galaxy. As the day drew to a close, Ethan, Lyra, and Saris sat atop a hill overlooking the settlement. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant shades of red and gold. Lyra placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Our worlds will never be the same after today. You've changed everything." Ethan looked out at the horizon, thinking about the countless battles humans had fought, not with sheer power, but with ingenuity, resilience, and heart. "Good," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time they changed." Lyra smiled, her eyes soft and luminous. "Humans are not what I expected. You are extraordinary." Ethan chuckled lightly, brushing dust from his jacket. "We just keep going. That's all we do." As night fell over Varela 9, the safe zone buzzed with renewed energy. Humans and Valari alike had reason to hope. And at the heart of it all, a small human engineer had proven that courage, cleverness, and compassion could not only save lives but inspire change across the galaxy. Together, Ethan, Lyra, and Saris stared at the stars above, knowing that this was only the beginning. The Catharn would return, but so would humanity's courage. And when that time came, no one, Not even the most powerful alien warriors would underestimate a human's heart again.